drug. He wouldn't let go of directing. And you have to remember, in 6 weeks, he's going to be directing Schindler's List. It's not like he's retiring. So it's a testament to what a consummate filmmaker he is.
You have something to add. You look like you have something to add.
I don't. Beautiful story, John Kretschmer. I love that. Well, no. Steven Spielberg, as we all know. Yes. Consummate.
I'm going to get to you in a second. John, I think that a lot of people are familiar with Stan Winston's work, but I think because we sadly are not able to have him here to talk about his work, can you give us an idea of just the spirit of working with him? As it began, as you were told, you had to build massive 20-foot tall T-Rex to stare down these actors. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, huge shout out to Stan Winston, who we all miss. My mentor. I was so fortunate to work with him for 25 years, and he was a great artist, a great human being, and an innovator. And I remember when I first heard about the Jurassic Park, which for me was a big deal, because I grew up loving dinosaurs like probably everyone here, and every little kid in the world. And Steven came to Stan with this challenge because he had seen what we had done with the Queen Alien in Aliens. And he felt like, I think these guys might be able to do this. And Stan, jumped right up, took it on, said, of course we can. Then afterwards, in Stan's typical style, was like, I don't know how we're going to do this. But there was no challenge that Stan would back down from, and we were all along for this amazing ride.
So when you saw one of those creatures for the first time, and you had been a fly, like you had dealt you had dealt with makeup and this kind of creature effects before, but when I'm actually curious what the first animatronic was that you had to interact with. Was it the T-Rex scene? Was it the Triceratops? What was it?
No. Here's what I remember. Do you know, we were there, and you'll bear me out unless I'm wrong, unless there was one before this, but I think the first, we shot in Kauai, Hawaii, for the first 2 weeks, famously, and there's much to say about that. But I believe the first time I saw a Stan Winston animatronic dinosaur was in the scene with the Triceratops. Yep.
The sick Triceratops.
Sick Triceratops. You remember it, and Jerry Mullen, of course, who was another big producer on that movie, played the veterinarian, and then we go up to it. It's where I believe I say that's one big pile of shit.
That is correct.
That was the next day, but that's that scene, isn't it? That's kind of that sequence. And then we came upon that thing, and of course it's not on the back lot of Universal where we shot most of the rest of the movie, but in what is the natural, what looks like, I guess, what's supposed to be Costa Rica, or anyway, it looks very authentic. And you'll know better than I do, the puppeteers, or whatever they're called, the master craftspeople, 7 or 8 of them, as I remember, were hidden in some kind of bunker underneath. So the actors, when we went up to that thing, we saw a life-size Triceratops, for heaven's sakes, breathing and blinking and doing everything, and it was absolutely breathtaking and stunning. How about that?
It's incredible. It's incredible. John, I remember when John actually puppeteered our Apatosaurus on Jurassic World, and that was an incredible moment for me. I remember my son coming up and the Apatosaurus eating grass out of his hand that you were puppeteering. It's one of my all-time memories as a father. But I remember you mentioned that the way that you integrated the Triceratops into the earth, you took the red dirt and you spread it all over him. I'm really interested in what steps you took once you actually got them out of the lab, out of where they were constructed, to make them feel real.
Well, that's a good point, because the guys that are building and painting and laboring and putting all this detail into it, and there was a fellow named Joey Orozco who had done this tremendous paint job on it, and then when it gets to Hawaii, it just needed something else, and this is what you're talking about. and the red clay dirt starts going all over his paint job, and at first he's horrified. But when you think about it, whenever you see a big animal that moves through the ground or whatever, all of that dust is going to get on it when you observe a rhino or an elephant. So it was that extra bit of detailing that took it to another level that really made it kind of sing out and be real. It was one with the earth.
I remember, John, you were talking a little bit the other night about the sequence with the T-Rex, and when you first arrived and realized that you were going to be shooting this thing with a camera that felt completely real, what was it like to be there on that night?
Well, it was the most spectacular puppet probably ever created or ever will be created, because not only was it a life-size T-Rex without legs, it was on a motion base which was used for flight simulation, and the puppet was animated by guys moving something called a Waldo, which is a miniaturized version of metal armatures, which were connected with a computer to this large thing. So they could move the head very quickly, and you'd see the head of the T-Rex go like that. So it was, I think, Colin, you pointed out, it was actually a very dangerous machine. It could actually kill you if you didn't stay away from it, because it moved just like a live animal.
12,000-pound puppet.
Right. And there was no delay from the time they moved the Waldo to the time the T-Rex moved. When you see the movie, none of that is sped up. That is actually moving as quickly as it appears when you see the T-Rex attack. It was the most incredible job of engineering and puppetry I have ever seen and ever will see, and you will ever see.
Go ahead, sir. But all of my movements in that first one are sped up in post-production. I could never move as quickly as I was in that first movie.
Never again. Well, while I have you, you read a book that had a character in it, Ian Malcolm, and you went through a process of deciding how you were going to bring this character to life. And what were some of the things that you thought about before you even stepped onto set with this guy?
That's a very interesting question. Did I ever tell you that where I told you that story where?
Well, you didn't tell them.
But I'm sure they've heard it, because I've told this story where I had a meeting with Steven Spielberg, in his office somewhere close to here. Yeah, and I'd read the book, and by the time we had the meeting, he said, there's a new draft of the script where your character is eliminated. Your lines are kind of taken up by Alan Grant, and I kind of made a pitch, and anyway, I got in the movie. But
Just a little bit, you got in the movie.
You never heard that story? Yeah.
Can I? I'm sorry. I have to mention to you guys something that I've always wanted to tell Jeff for 25 years, which is when you see the scene where they're in the Jeep and they're just before they get to the Triceratops, and he's doing the chaos theory sequence, and then Sam gets out, and then Laura gets out, and he says, and here I am by myself, and that's chaos, I'm proving it. It seems like he's making those lines up. Jeff is the most unique actor I have ever worked with, and I have worked with thousands of actors. He is the only actor I know who you think is making up the words. He makes them his own. And those words are absolutely scripted, but you would never know to watch the film. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Don Kretschmer. High praise indeed. But
It's something I'm very envious of as a writer, in that we write these new films, but when you watch Jurassic Park, so much of that dialogue is from Crichton. It's from the book, and most of your iconic lines are from Crichton, and or you. Or David Kemp, who wrote that film.
Although
it's
look at
amazing
this
how
pile
much.
of shit, I think was his line.
That was you.
Yeah, I think that was you.
That sounds like you. But it's like, it puts anyone, for us writing these films, it puts us at a great disadvantage to not have Crichton's dialogue in the movies. I think it's underestimated, like how much of a massive help it is to have someone so brilliant contributing to the script. What were, as you stepped into that character, did he help just define it for you?
Yeah. I mean, not him. I didn't talk to him.
Right.
But yes, that book, and I kept referring to the book. But I think playing that, to answer your question, I think playing that part then as it was in our movie, the one you just wrote that I had a little part in, this next movie coming out, the most provocative things are the questions that are really, that character addresses. Like, in the first movie, and now 25 years later, like, you know, with this power, you know, where does science, you know, how highly can we esteem science? Science is a very beautiful thing, I think my character is thinking about, and the mechanism of human curiosity is a wonderful and beautiful thing, and the accomplishments of science, of course, are beautiful, but the questions of their ethical use, and politics getting involved, and national concerns and nationalism, and greed and money and militarism, of course, is of real passionate interest to my character then and now, and are important issues in our world.
I can tell that story. I have a story now, because I was in my home. I live in England, and my wife said, Jeff Goldblum's on the phone. And we'd never spoken before, and I had written, I'd written your scenes, but most of your dialogue was from Crichton in our film. I pulled from the book, and then I'd done my best to kind of fill in the blanks, and he and I sat together on the phone for about an hour.
Yeah, hour or two, as I remember. I was in my little house.
I wasn't going anywhere. Like, as long as you wanted to keep talking about
you were so
lines,
sweet.
I'm there.
That was a very memorable. I loved, that was as creative a time as I had on this last movie. Our preparation and talking about and tweaking and talking about the issues that we're talking about now, and how we could best articulate them in that scene. I loved that.
It was amazing how so much of what he had written in Jurassic Park was completely relevant, if not more relevant now, to what's going on in the world and what science has wrought, and the dangers of it spreading too far.
Yes, well, science in itself is not so dangerous.
It's genetic power.
How we use it. Yes, I mean, my character in the movie finally brings up, if it's still in there, nuclear.
You made the cut.
Power. Nuclear power. And I say it's, these are, Einstein, they're people who came up with these things, are brilliant and to be credited, but how we make use of this awesome power that we now have to destroy ourselves or to create terrifically and effectively is really a question, and is going to challenge our humanity and our wisdom and our best thinking, and how to manage genetic power, for instance, and what to do with it. So that the world can work for everybody. Not a few people can get rich, or one nation can prevail over another, but so that the world can finally work for everybody. How do we use these things like that?
Well, we had a good conversation about the hurricane that happened on the set, and I think that filmmaking is one long process of solving problems every day and new challenges that come up, but very rarely do you have to deal with a natural disaster that happens on your watch. Do you have any memory from that moment?
I have three very funny memories. Well, the first one isn't funny, and it's about Jeff again. And since this is a love fest for Mr. Goldblum, I'll tell you a story that when we were preparing for the hurricane, and I'll tell that story after this, Jeff was the only actor who came up to me and said, "What can I do to help?" That's a measure of the man.
Thanks, John. I don't know if you're making that up. I kind of remember it, didn't it? Everybody was there. Everybody's best foot was forward, though. In times of crisis, the whole company was very...
Okay, now I'm going to tell you guys a story. I've never told anyone, so I'm going to ask you all to raise your right hands and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Jeff Goldblum,
solemnly swear never to tell this story to anyone as long as I live, on penalty of never seeing another Star Wars movie. So help me God. Okay. We're filming on our second to last day in Hawaii, in Kauai, and Kathy Kennedy, the executive producer, comes to the set and says, "Okay, we all have to pack up. There's a hurricane headed right toward us. The eye is going to pass over our hotel. You have to get into the trucks, get back to the hotel, and bunker down." So we all load up into cars, and the crew goes and they load the trucks. and we have a big meeting in the production office, and every producer is there, every line producer is there, Rick Carter, the brilliant production designer, is there. I'm there, Steven's there, Kathy's there, Jerry Bullen is there. And Jerry says, okay, Steven, just don't worry, I've called Warner's, they're flying the jet in, we're gonna put you on the jet and get you out of here. Now, I know that Warner Brothers is not flying a $26 million jet into the eye of a hurricane, but I don't say anything. And so Jerry then turns to Kathy Kennedy and he says, Kathy, I want you on that plane, too. And Kathy says, no, I'm not gonna go, I'm not gonna bail on this crew. And I, without thinking like an idiot, say, you mean like some people we know? In that next second, I saw my entire future in Hollywood disappear. And luckily, the entire room exploded in laughter afterward. The other memory I have, and I'm not ragging on Steven because I adore him. A memory I have, very, very fond memory I have of Steven. That night, we were in the hotel basement, and we're hearing the sound of this hurricane pass over us, and it sounds like a freight train driving through your living room. And I see Steven, and he's in the corner with all the kids from the movie and all the kids of crew members. And he's reciting from memory the opening from The Music Man, Rock Island, look what he talk. He does the whole thing, which is like a 10-minute monologue. And he's doing it to entertain these kids and take their minds off the danger of what we were in. And I just want you to think about that next time you see a Steven Spielberg movie.